I want to share with you today, as we continue on our quest, as it were, to understand the attribute of Evel. The Gra says here, Perik Yud Aleph Pasuk Chotes, on the Pasuk Oiker Beisai Yinchel Ruach. Someone who dirties his home, he will inherit wind. The Eved Avel L'Chacham Lev. So the Gra has two pshatim here I'd like to share with you. Two beautiful ideas. I want to say the second one first, because it's so critical. The Gra explains as follows. A person who is very involved with Torah. He's, let's say, Rosh Shiva, Rosh Koilel, a Mashgiach, even an Avrich, or somebody who's Kaveitim L'Torah, as the Rambam says, who's a Balabas, someone who studies Torah 9 hours a day and um, works 3 hours a day. These are very high levels, of course. But even if a person only goes to a Daf Yomi Shir every day, only a person goes to a Daf Yomi Shir and understands it in 7 years, he'll finish Shas. No. Whatever level of Torah a person, whatever level of kamas and echos, of amount and quality of Torah a person engages in life, he should take that Torah and bring it back to his home. That's what the Vilna Gaon says. Why is that so important? Because I'm going to present to you two scenarios. A person's a Rosh Hashiva. All day long he's dealing with his Talmidim, teaching them Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, um, Mishnah, Chumash, Hashkafa, Musar. And then he gets home, he needs to unwind. So they talk a little bit about politics, who's running for elections. Maybe they talk about baseball. Maybe they talk about business. What's happening with the stock market? Is it up? Is it down? Is it down? Is it up? It's usually one of the two. Sometimes it's constant. Whatever they might talk about. So what's going to happen? He's going to have a yeshiva full of wonderful Talmidim, but his house is not going to be a house of Torah. And what's happened? One day, he's going to wake up and forget it's Shabbos, or he's going to forget to check one of the products with a proper kasher symbol, or something like that, something of this. And there'll be no one to remind him, because his house is not imbued with the passion of Torah that he has. He hasn't taken the time to give it over. And that's what the Gemara says here brilliantly on this pasuk. Oker beisa yinchel ruach. Mishe'eno loymin b'nei beisa. He doesn't learn with his family. All day long he's teaching Talmidim. When he gets home, he needs to unwind. Let's teach Torah to his family. Yinchel ruach. Sheyishkach. He'll forget things. V'lo yein mi sheyizkros. When he forgets something, no one will remind him. Avalomin and beiso eitzel tamid v'yaskir. They'll be all the time around him and they'll remind him. Continues the Gemara though. What about Eved Avil L'Chacham Lev? The end of the pasuk. Halomid bad bad. Right, a person who learns by himself, he doesn't join up with a chabura, he doesn't join up with other people to study Torah. He'll become a tipesh, says the Gemara. It's a Gemara in Brachos Daf Sam Gimel and Beis. Halomid bad bad is mitapshin. A person who learns by himself, he loses it. He loses his Torah. Kitzarch lo l'sholom mimeno. He'll become an evet to the Chacham Lev. Yeah, so the person who did learn with other people is machkim other people. He'll have to ask him what he doesn't know. There's an intrinsic difference between someone who studies Torah and gives it over to other people. As the Chassid Yavitz, who was one of the great Rishonim who lived the time of the Spanish Inquisition, he explains the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, right? Moshe Kibul Torah Misina Masrul Yeshua. Says the Chassid Yavitz, Masrul Yeshua. He says someone who's Kibul Torah Misinai, he has to pass it over to the next generation. If he doesn't pass it over, it's lacking in his acceptance of the Torah. There's no Kabbalah. Kabbalah's the Torah means that I'm going to give it over to the next generation, to my students, to my family, to whoever is willing to listen. All of the wonderful individuals who tune into Shirim on Torah Anytime, they use that 5 minutes that they have to listen to Shirim such as these, and they strengthen themselves in Torah and Yerushalayim. Right? This is a Chacham Lev, right? And this is what the Gemara is telling us, right? That the Eved Avel is going to be an Eved L'Chacham Lev, because the Avel doesn't join up with groups, listen to Shirim, and find Chaburas to learn Torah, and he's going to be a Tipesh. A person, a Talmud Chacham, is someone who learns from other people, and he takes the time to find Rabbanim, to find Rebbetzins, to find Shirim, to find Svarim, and that's a Talmud Chacham. That's a real Talmud Chacham, right? And the Eved Avil, the Avil, the person who doesn't, he's not willing to spend time. He's not willing to spend time to think about things. He's not willing to spend time to listen to people. And he's not willing to spend the time to find a group, a chabura, a shir, whatever might help him, right? That's the Avil. He acts on impulse and he has no time for anything. He's too busy with matters of great consequence. And he's going to become an Eved in the end, a slave, he won't know what to do. And he'll have to turn to the person who did take time to study and to teach and to learn and to find a teacher. And the person who finds a teacher, so he is part of the Messiah. He's part of the chain of Torah going all the way back to our Sinai. This is what we have to connect to. My Rebbe Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zatzal, Hagoyin, Maran, Rabbeinu, Rabbeinu Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, writes, it's a privilege for me to be even the smallest link in the Masorah of Klal Yisrael, the chain of transmission, going all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. What a wonderful opportunity we have to be part of that chain. So thus says the Vilna Gaon that we want to be part of that. We want to be part of that experience. And the way we do that is finding and searching out for a Rebbe, for a Shir, for a Sefer that we could really learn from and gain from other people. That's the first shot. The second shot, says the Gra, right, is on a more pragmatic level, right? The same attributes of the Avil who doesn't take time to find the teacher, to find the Sefer, to find the Shir. He also doesn't have time to take care of his house. And he doesn't think he has a plumbing problem. He says, I'm not going to spend $50 to fix my toilet. Let it be, it'll be all right. Meanwhile, his house is flooded. He has nowhere to live. And that's Oker Basin. He destroys his home because he just doesn't have time. He doesn't have time to learn. He doesn't have time to teach. He doesn't have time to find a shir, a sefer, a rebbe. He doesn't have time to fix his house. And the whole thing will collapse. And in the end, he's going to be an Eved to the Chacham Lev. Because the Chacham Lev said, I'll spend $50, $100, even $1,000. I need to fix my plumbing. Otherwise, my whole house will be flooded with water. I won't have anywhere to live. These are the two, this is the critical attribute. The difference between a Chacham and between an Eved. The Chacham takes time for everything. He understands every single issue that comes into his hand is a test from the Borei Olam to see how we'll act in that situation. And to think through it and understand that we have to live our life with the greatest depth and thought and wisdom and understanding. And if we do that, then we'll be very, very successful in life. Right? Every person we meet, every issue that comes in our hands, think through it. You don't have to spend a lot of time, but spend some time. If your plumbing is broken and you want to call a second-rate plumber, think about it. If he doesn't do a good job, you're going to have to call another plumber and another plumber and another plumber. Find the plumber who's really good. Same thing with a doctor. Yeah, you go to this doctor and that doctor. You go to cheap doctors, get cheap service. Everything you do in life, think through it well, and you'll be successful. Last night I was speaking to somebody who's a great expert in a certain field, and we're discussing the possibility of even traveling to find medical assistance in a certain area because it's worth it to spend the time, right? It's worth it to spend the time now, right? As they remember, I remember Midas Mufflers. They used to say, you could pay now or you could pay later. You know, you could take care of your car or your home or your family or your children. You know, if you invest in your children now, then when they grow up, they'll be Yirei Shamayim and Tzaddikim. But if you don't invest in your children, as the Gra says at the end, if you don't invest in your home and your family, then you'll come out with absolutely nothing. Hashem should help us to follow the words of the Gra and to invest the time we need and whatever we need to, and the thought and the introspection, and to follow the midas of the Chacham Lev, the wise person, and not to be drawn after the foolishness of the Evel. Hashem, greatest help and siyat Shmai in this endeavor. Amen. Ken Ratzon.